two things I'm observing. One is the cost seems to be going up in order to publish. And the other thing is that content is just swarming the market.
This is Ron Pramshafer, and welcome to Publish Basics Radio, where weekly we try to help you navigate the self-publishing minefield. Today is part 2 of our conversation with Dave Maturo of Xlibris. So now, to the services, we've been talking just kind of like general terms, but you've basically got 2 different services offered. You've got a black and white trade book service, and you've got a 4-color children's book service.
That's right.
Okay, now on the black and white trade book, which is most, trade book is a reading book, a poetry book, whatever, a book with words.
A novel, yeah.
Novel, that's it. It's anything that's not a colored children's book or not a color book.
Correct.
Okay, it looks like you've got a plan that somebody pays between $500 and $1,600 as a setup fee.
Right.
And what's that cover?
That covers the layout of the book, the design of the cover, the change management. If the author comes back with any changes, is an a la carte. It covers distribution with Bowker's Books in print and Ingram. It'll probably include a handful of copies. Depending on the service level, it'll include a registration with the U.S. Copyright Office and the Library of Congress. And I believe that's about it.
Okay. Just playing around with the numbers a little bit. Somebody came out with a study years ago saying the average book was 256 pages. So based on an average book of 256 pages, I see you've got it set at a $21.99 retail if it goes through a reseller. It seems awful high. The retail prices, are they based on market or just strictly cost, which you need to be able to make in order to make it work?
It's largely, and I'd say if not all, it's based on cost. And here's why. The cost for printing books via print-on-demand technology, it's a great thing. You can print as many or as few books as you need, but the unit cost per book is higher than offset press, and you know this.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that cost to contend with. You also need to provide the author with a royalty. And then when you present this book to distributor channels, everyone takes what they call is the reseller discount. So they get a 40, sometimes 50% of the retail price of the book. You factor all those in, and you need a higher book price, a higher than your typical mass market paperback. You need a higher price in order to be able to make money on the book. Okay,
but it's a little bit like on the marketing end, it's a little bit like swimming upstream now. I mean, if you got 50 books on the shelf that are 256 pages and they're all $14.95, and you're trying to squeeze your book through at $21.99, the person buying the book could care less what you paid for the book. The marketplace determines the retail price. You've got to somehow learn how to make money within the market.
Well, that's a good point, and to some extent you're right on the money, and that has continued to present a challenge for Xlibris and for other POD publishers. However, one thing that we've found, this is simply through polling customers, we've found that people who purchase books, especially self-publishing books, are looking for content. Okay, so now you have your friends and family who are looking specifically for the author. They're going to buy it no matter what the cost is, within reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those who are looking for specific content, you're looking for, landscaping practices for golf courses in Pennsylvania. They're looking for this content, and they're going to buy it based on the content, not necessarily shopping based on price. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Just out of curiosity, I forgot to ask you earlier, the split between fiction and nonfiction, do you have any idea on that? I mean, we always tell people nonfiction's easier to sell, although there seems to be more fiction.
Yeah, we see a ton of fiction. I can't give you percentages, but it's largely fiction. However, I don't know if this is particular of the self-publishing industry, but we see a lot of nonfiction because there are people who have written memoirs, or they're writing a spiritual novel, or they're, a spiritual experience rather. They are unable to get their book published in the past, and now they finally have an outlet. And so we see a lot of war memorials, a lot of religious nonfiction books, a lot of people just simply telling their stories. So there is a lot of nonfiction in self-publishing companies.
Well, how we had Bill Clinton get up on national TV, tell everybody over 50 to go write down your memoirs.
Yeah.
That was probably the biggest single, boost to self-publishing that I've seen in the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
And although the example that you gave of the golf book, the golf course book, I mean that's probably the one. If I don't know, just guessing, the books that are more successful than others would probably be those ones that have that real limited market that you can kind of target.
Exactly.
And that'll absorb the higher price even at a retail level.
Yeah, I mean that's really the entire model. You have specific content, but there is a market for that content, and they will look for, find, and purchase your book.
Mm-hmm. Now, how about editorial service? I see you offer that, but it seemed like sort of a one size fits all, like penny and a half, or whatever it was a word. Did many people pick up on the editorial service?
I'd say around 20% will pick up the editorial, and it's copy editing, not content editing, of course.
Yeah.
Grammar, punctuation, things like that, word consistency.
It's like a step above the spell checker.
It's a lot more than that. Anybody can do a spell check on using Microsoft Word. This is a lot in terms of word, like I said, word choice, grammar, punctuation. There's a whole lot that's in there, and it takes days for an editor to read through a book, right? Because they actually have to read the entire book and then edit the entire way through.
I mean, it's all, from what I understand, I mean, you can pay a whole lot more. I mean, people end up paying thousands of dollars on editors.
Sure.
And it's not just the difference in the hourly rate. I mean, it's just, there's more, more that's done. All right. So you all got involved with children's books. How many years ago? It was a couple years back, right?
I was actually on the product development team. We developed that in 2002. We launched it April 2002.
Okay. And how well has it been doing?
It's doing well. I'd say it's 25% of the business at this point. It's become popular. It's not as popular as we thought it was going to be. We thought it was going to overtake the existing business, but that's probably more about marketing the product than it is about author choice. Okay,
because this is the one area back in my my former life when I was a printing salesman, calling on places like Random House and Modern, Scholastic. They print hundreds and hundreds of thousands of these 32-page children's books. And as I talk to people that are thinking about printing small quantities, a 32-page children's book bought by Scholastic at 100,000 copies is probably costing them like 30 cents on the printing, and they're retailing it for like $1.99, $2.99. When you get a self-publisher come in and want to do the same thing, their cost is like significantly higher than what the Scholastic model, what the competition's retail price is.
Yeah, it can be expensive.
And I've looked here, God, on a 32-page paperback children's book. You've got a retail of like $14.99. Now, I can't. Is it that same 65% break on? I just can't imagine many of these books being sold through commercial channels. I can see the author buying them. I can see maybe the author sending somebody through the Xlibris website to buy some. I just don't see $15 paperback 32-page books selling through any other channels.
They do sell through the channels, although it's fewer. I can't give you a percentage on that, but if it's 64% of the authors, of typical authors, buy their own book, it's higher for picture books. So you are correct. The pricing is higher, and that's simply because the technology, the print-on-demand technology, has advanced pretty substantially for black and white, and it's not quite there for color yet. In fact, that's why the product was launched in 2002. It economically was just not feasible until that time. And we were looking at it. We looked at it year after year until finally we could make it work.
Okay, and does the same thing on the color? Obviously, color costs more than black and white.
Yep.
Their upfront investments like between $1,000 and $2,500.
That's correct.
Okay, and that includes original illustration, or is that templates, or how's that work?
Well,
or do they supply their own illustrations?
They supply their own illustration. We can point people in the right direction. We actually used to provide an illustration service. Still do if an author really needs it, but it's not a main service like it used to be, because it's a very challenging thing. You're competing with an author's imagination and a designer's ability, an illustrator's ability to capture it. It's a challenging product. We haven't quite figured it out yet.
Okay, and the color book's the same as black and white. After they get done, they don't own the file?
That's correct.
Okay, and then distribution. I wasn't aware. Is the print on demand available for color, or is that done a different way? Like the Amazon channel, or not Amazon, though, the Ingram channel.
Ingram. We don't yet provide that distribution. So the book is listed in Bowker's Books and Print, and any reseller can come directly to Xlibris and buy the book from the author. But we don't quite have the distribution worked out yet. Although,
but nobody else does either, do they?
Nobody else does either, and that's simply because the only POD printer that Ingram allows into their chain for POD publishing is Lightning Source,
which they happen to own. So.
And Lightning Source is just starting to work out their color printing. They're allowed to print color. They can print color, but they don't have it worked out for distribution yet. But that's something that they are working on.
Okay. Where do you think we're all going to be 10 years from now, this whole industry?
I think what we're seeing is there's a Lulu Enterprises that just came out, Publish America, iUniverse. There are a number of publishers that are coming out, and it's basically we're flooding the market. And two things I'm observing. One is the cost seems to be going up for people in order to publish. $1,400 is not an easy expenditure for anybody. And the other thing is that content is just swarming the market. So I think that the two things that we'll see are more of a movement toward the Publish America and iUniverse model, which is being a little bit more selective again about the content that comes through, and also seeing lower prices for the service because it's quite exorbitant for people.
Okay, great. Dave, I really think you opened some eyes today. Thanks for joining me. For Publishing Basics Radio, this is Ron Crampshafer. See you next week.